off tasks in your studio, whether it's like planning lessons or doing some business stuff, because, it just, you're not feeling it. You're thinking, ugh, like this is simple, but I just don't want to do it today. Or if it's something that's maybe a little bit more daunting and you just keep putting it off because you really don't want to, at this moment, revisit your studio budget or redo your lesson schedule. And you might also see this type of stuff happening with your students. They're procrastinated doing something that feels hard to them, or, they're just not feeling the thing. I think that this is something that happens to a lot of us. Procrastination is this sneaky little thing that comes up when we least expect it. And so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be examining some of the roots of procrastination. Because, our society, there's this thing that kind of happens when we observe ourselves being lazy, right? When we are like avoiding doing something, we might get down on ourselves about being lazy or just like, ugh, I just need to do this thing. Or we might feel, this outside pressure thinking that others think that we're lazy because we're avoiding doing something. Or, you might think that your own students are kind of being lazy or unorganized because they're not doing the things. Well, here's the deal. Procrastination is not laziness. It's not disorganization. There are many different things that can be the roots of procrastination. And so today, what we're going to do is we're going to examine three of those things and have a discussion around, how can we solve this issue? What are the things that we can do? So I hope that you're going to enjoy this today. This is definitely not going to be one of your typical get it done, like pull up your bootstraps kind of discussion around powering through. This is going to be about figuring out the whys behind that action of avoiding a necessary task. And we're also going to be doing some examining around, is that task actually necessary? So I'm looking forward to having this discussion with you. Before we get into it, I'm going to play a little intro music and I'll be right back. And we're back. I believe that all the links are going live, and I'll bring up the topic onto the screen today. Today's topic is understanding the whys behind procrastination. And we'll be looking at this from the viewpoint of being business owners, being music teachers, but also from the standpoint of, how can we help our clients if we see them stuck in a cycle of procrastination. So I want to pause and say welcome to the broadcast, everyone. I'm so glad that you're here. If you're new and you don't know me, my name is Sara Campbell, and I am a business strategist, mindset, and marketing coach for music studio owners and online ed experts just like yourself. And we go live here on Wednesdays at 12 noon Eastern, where we talk about all those topics. So today we're going to be diving into mindset and thinking about, what are the big whys behind avoiding projects or tasks. So before we get going with this, I do have a couple of housekeeping things. We love to learn out loud. So if you hear something that's valuable today and you learn something that you want to use when it comes to figuring out those procrastination things, give us a hashtag takeaway and pop that information into the comments, and I can bring it up on the screen if you're here live with me. If you're not here live and you're watching this later on, please do give us your takeaways. I'd love to come back and have a conversation with you. And as always, I do have the Savvy Sara bot set up and ready to go. Wait, why did that come up? All right. Hey, YouTubers, be sure to subscribe. I hit the wrong button, but go ahead, subscribe. It's great. And the Savvy Sara bot is set up so if you are on Instagram or you are on Facebook, if you drop the word why down below, we'll be able to get a hold get you information about the show notes from today. So it's going to give you the list of the reasons behind procrastination and some solutions to those as well. Pop Rock Coach, hey there, Heather's over on Instagram. Say hello. And I do have an important question for those who are watching. For the people who have signed up to receive text message reminders about our broadcasts, can you let me know if those have been coming through over the past month and a half? We are in the process of digging into a possible issue with SMS delivery. Something's going on with Twilio and ManyChat. So if you signed up to get text message reminders, and if you are still receiving them, like in the last 45 days, let me know. If you were not receiving them, also let me know, because I actually have been sending them every single week, but apparently it looks like they're only getting sent to my phone, which is super awkward because that means I've been talking to myself since the middle of March. We're going to try to figure that out. So let me know if those are coming through, or if not, that would be really, really, really helpful. Okay, it looks like Laura says not getting them. Elizabeth is also saying not getting them. Keep those answers coming. Let me know. We're going to dig into this afternoon and see if we can solve the issue. Which reminds me, if you are looking, to find the easy links to view our videos, go ahead and, if you haven't done so already, join our email list. We do send those links out about half an hour before every broadcast. We send the links to both Facebook and YouTube so that you can join us. Hey, Dawn of Music over on Instagram. Hi. All right, let's get to the discussion here today. So let's unpack the issue of procrastination. I chose this topic in part because I was having a really great discussion with one of my friends and colleagues, Stephanie, last week on a coaching call. And we were, discussing different topics that we might be able to present to our audiences. She is also a coach, and she's absolutely amazing. Shout out to Stephanie. I'll have to tag her in this. And I was, we were talking about, what are our clients, experiencing? And I think one of the things that popped into my brain is thinking about, my coaching clients who might have really large goals in mind. It could be the things that I mentioned at the very top of the call, things like overhauling a lesson schedule, like totally redoing the way you're structuring your day. It could be, revisiting your studio budget and figuring out your pricing again. And it's something that you might try to avoid, right? We keep pushing it off. We keep finding other things to do other than that, right? And also, I think it applies to the students that we have in our studio, because you've all had students who you set goals with them, you work together to set goals, and then like they reach this block. They're kind of hitting this brick wall. And so the issue is oftentimes society teaches us, right, that if you're procrastinating, if you see somebody that's procrastinating, or if you are procrastinating, it's a result of being lazy or unorganized, because we live in this super hustle bustle society where getting things done is supposed to happen. And that if we want to be productive and successful, we need to power through feelings and just do it. Now, I realize that there are going to be points in time when you're working on a task, or if you're working on a large project, where, you are going to have to power through something that you don't like. But I don't think that, in my personal opinion, I don't think that viewing procrastination that way is productive. And if that resonates with you, if you also dislike the idea of framing procrastination as being lazy or unorganized, let me know if that resonates, because I'm kind of getting tired of that message. So I'd love to know what you all think. So here today, what we're going to be looking at is, what are some roots of procrastination? So let's start unpacking these. We're going to look at 3 different roots, and we're going to examine them and apply them to both, what does it look like if I've experienced something like this as a business owner, and also what does it look like if my students are experiencing it? Sound good? If it sounds good, take a moment to let me know that that you're with me. Maybe Give me some hearts, give me some thumbs up, drop like whatever funky emoji, unicorns, whatever, and let me know that this resonates with you. So we're going to look at the first issue, and the first issue here today, one of the first reasons behind procrastination is, you might have guessed this one, fear of failure. So I was digging into this a little bit and thinking about what does it mean to quote unquote fail, right? And so here's what I've kind of discovered. Oh, yay. Thank you, Jacqueline Dunn. So awesome of you dropping some emojis. Okay. So here's what I feel. All right. So like if you've ever avoided starting a project, when I say project and task, I should say a project is something that's big. It contains lots of tasks inside of it, right? There are going to be many steps inside of a big project. A task is something this is a single thing that has to be done, right? So if you've ever avoided a project or a task because in the back of your brain you have this idea that you might mess it up, I want you to know that I get that too, right? It's fear of failure. It's like this nagging voice in your head that's saying like you might not nail it perfectly. And this often stems from people who identify with being a perfectionist, people who have very high self-expectations, right? And we're not talking about everybody wants to do a good job. I'm talking about perfectionism and like super high self-expectations that are to the point where you can almost never meet them. Raise your hand if you suffer from that issue. That is me. So what ends up happening is that we avoid the task because that we're worried that we won't be able to meet our own expectations or the expectations of others. Right? I see. Okay, thank you for sharing this. I would love to know from others. Like, I'm going to bring this up. Laura, you're so amazing and brave and awesome, and I love you. Laura shares, my procrastination is rooted in my anxiety around being able to do a good job. Recital season equals procrastination. Laura, I know that you're not alone there. Like Linda is raising her hand and saying me. So is Elizabeth. And this is really cool. Ooh, I love this. Dr. Heather Nelson in the house. She shares, I heard something years ago that really resonated, that perfectionism is really imperfectionism because we aren't obsessed about the perfect things, but about the imperfect things. Dang, I like that, right? We are obsessing around the things that aren't perfect. That's actually going to tie in beautifully to the second thing that we're going to cover. First, hydrate. If you are at home right now and you are watching me, it's time to take a drink of water. Don't choke on your water while you're doing a broadcast. All right. So back to this idea, right? This idea of procrastination being rooted in fear of failure. I can give you some pretty clear examples that I've experienced myself, and then also like examples from students of mine. And if you have any examples that you would like to share where you might have like procrastinated with something because of fear of failure, please do share that in the discussion. That would be fabulous. So something that I think about for myself is I will sometimes avoid starting a new project because I'm not sure that it's going to work. And it's not, I actually know, I think deep down, like I have the skills to make this work, right? I know how to launch a new class. I know how to market it. I know how to run the class. But what happens in my brain is this little voice starts telling me like it won't be good enough. And I start obsessing over this idea that it might be what, as Dr. Heather Nelson shared, like it would be imperfect. And, so that is something that has often put me into pause mode on things. And we're going to discuss solutions around that, of course. In the example of, clients that I've worked with, and I'm going to use my studio clients rather than my coaching clients. I could talk about the coaching clients too, but I want this to be super applicable. Applicable? Applicable? Good question. I want you to be able to use this, is what I mean to say. So if you are teaching a student and you're finding them avoiding doing something for lack of, for fear of failure, like here's what it might look like. So I think about some of my voice students, right? Some of my voice students who let's take the example of someone who is singing a role in a show, and there are some pretty difficult notes that have to be hit. Typically, they're those like quote, we're gonna call them belty, but they're not actually belty. These belty notes that are on D flat, D, E flat, the money notes that happen in a lot of modern shows that require a type of mix that might feel foreign to a young student. And because they are afraid of that note, because they have cracked in the past, right? They've cracked up on that high note in the past. They avoid doing the work that's going to help them for fear of sounding bad, right? Because I know all the voice teachers who are listening right now, I'm preaching to the choir. Sometimes when we're teaching somebody to find that ease, right, up in that area of a register, we're going to make some ugly sounds. But there can be this fear of failure, fear of sounding bad. So they procrastinate doing those exercises. Now, what can we do when procrastination is rooted in fear of failure? Well, that is the time when it's important to examine, like, is this really true? Right? If this happens, what does it say about me? Like, if my voice cracks, what does it say about me? It says, okay, something happened that wasn't optimal, right? It doesn't mean that you're a bad singer. If I launch something and it doesn't go well, does that mean that I'm a bad coach? No. It means that maybe something got missed along the way. So, yeah, all right, Elizabeth is saying, preach. Yay, voice teachers. If that resonates with you, let me know. So that first step, fear of failure, then what do we do with that? We need to learn to shine some light on that fear and think about, is it real? What does it mean? And examine it rather than avoiding it completely, which is just another form of procrastination. All right, let's move on to reason number 2. And I really loved putting this together because this is something that I've actually posted about in the past. So I used, there's an Allen Miller quote. That those of you who got the email reminders got the Allen Miller quote. And now I'll read it out loud here because I think that it's something that really resonates. It's this. And Allen Miller, just so you know, is a writer and humorist. And he said, if you want to make an easy job seem hard, just keep putting it off. And that's what prompted this entire discussion for me here today. In thinking about, well, why do we put things off? So here's the second reason that I uncovered, right? The second reason that I've observed a lot. Feeling overwhelmed. All right, let's be honest. I love to put off small tasks because I am feeling overwhelmed with other things that are happening, right? Or I love to put off big things because the idea of it feels like too much. So let's unpack this. Basically, if a task or a project feels too large, too complex, or if it's not really clear, it makes it really easy to put off that thing rather than face it head on. So we put it off, right? We delay. We'll say that we'll do it tomorrow. But tomorrow becomes the next day and then the next day, etc. Because when we're looking at something that those 3 things, right? Too big, too complex, and the most important thing, that it's unclear. When that happens, we are going to be put into a state of, oh, this feels overwhelming to me. So in this instance, we're going to talk about the solution in a second, but I just want to pause there and say, like, yeah, that happens to me. I wonder if it happens to you. I've seen it happen to clients of mine. And, in those, both in the studio and in the coaching business, in the coaching office as it is. And when that happens, I have found it helpful in all circumstances for myself, for my piano students, for my coaching clients. I feel that that is a sign that it's time to revisit what is this project and what is this task, and to examine it and think about what about this feels too large or too complex or unclear. And at that point, we're going to find some direction around, like, well, what can we do around this, right? And it might look like, sitting down and really figuring out, okay, why does this feel unclear to me? Do I need to start examining like the whys behind this goal? Do I need to examine the process that we've put together here? Or maybe we haven't put a process together. Maybe we've just like named this thing that we want to happen, but we actually haven't sat down to think about, how is this going to happen? What are the possible ways that we could make this happen? So if we're finding ourselves in a state of overwhelm, it's often a sign we haven't done the work to break things down. That's something that I love to do, because as someone who has like strategic in her top 5 and achiever in her top 5 Clifton strengths, I love to sit down and pick apart projects or even pick apart tasks to create like an action step list. Right? That's like one of my superpowers. Let's look at the comments that we've got here. Let's see. Yay, Laura says, procrastinating putting together the recital program as we speak. I feel you. I feel you. And sometimes when we're finding those things, that we just don't want to do, the simplest thing is to look at that project or task and just find one thing that you can do about it. I noticed for myself, I'll share a little story here. I have a small studio that I teach. I have 9 students, and I have been full disclosure procrastinating around putting together the summer schedule, which at this point is getting quite ridiculous because it's May 17th, right? And I started to realize why I was procrastinating, because when I was writing this task, this project down into my planner, I was using the words finalize summer schedule. And every time I got to that thing, that felt overwhelming to me. And so it was easy for me to skip over that thing and go to the next project and just be like, oh, whoops, I ran out of time today to do that. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to like get real about this. I need to get this out there. And I've been really putting this off. So instead of writing finalize summer schedule, I wrote the task explore summer schedule. Or I tried the task spend 20 minutes brainstorming about the summer schedule. Or talk to Brad about the summer schedule to make sure that we were taking the right weeks off. And that felt so much more doable to me. And I am happy to say that I am going to get some of that done. Hey there, Will is over on Instagram. So nice to see you, buddy. All right, let's continue here. We have a couple of things. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Heather said, when I read the quote in the email, I thought at first it was Olin Mills, the family portrait king, and it made me giggle. Yes. Okay. So feeling overwhelmed is my biggest thing, because I'm often doing things that I don't feel confident that I know how to do them. Marketing is still my nemesis, and I spin. I feel you. That makes sense. Okay. So let's move on to number 3. And then as we wrap this up, we'll do a rapid recap for those of you who might have tuned in late, and we'll go through all of the points. Oh, well, thank you, Linda. That makes me feel good. I'm glad that this is going to give you a little bit of motivation. So if y'all are receiving motivation from this, hooray. All right, reason number 3. This is really important, because remember I said at the top of the show, this is not a discussion about powering through and just, being an adult and doing the things. I don't think that that is healthy. Reason number 3 is that you're just not feeling it. So let's examine that, right? This was my favorite reason to write about, because I feel like this is a very important thing to pay attention to, not just for yourself, but for your students. And it's something that took me a really long time to learn. So sometimes we procrastinate because we feel like we can't do it or the job is too big. Those were the first 2 things that we talked about, right? Fear of failure and overwhelm. Or there might be something different at play at the root of it. It could be that we are actually uninterested in the task, right? We're just not feeling it. In this case, what's happening is that there's really no intrinsic motivation to move forward. There is nothing attached to this that like is making you feel good, or that there's going to be a sense of accomplishment at the end. So when this happens, if you are sensing that in yourself, I feel it's really important to re-examine, like, does this task or project align with my overarching goals? Does it align with my values, and the way that I want to work? Because, with all the shiny objects out there, endless amounts of tech that come out all the time, or these ideas that we might see in other teaching forums, starting group lessons or doing a summer camp or doing all this stuff. We see these things, and we see that other people are being successful with them, and we see it as this like shiny object, this thing that we, watch out, we're going to say the S word, that we should be doing. But then when we put that on our to-do list, we just keep avoiding it, because really at the root of it, we're not feeling it, right? Um, so I think it's important to, if you're having something, that you are avoiding because like, it just does not bring you joy, we need to examine that. We need to examine why. Now, if it doesn't align, then that might mean like, oh, there's some different things that we need to do, right? We might need to like go back to the drawing board and think about, is this a project that I actually want to do? Or if it does align and we're avoiding the task because it feels boring and there's no intrinsic motivation, then we can do one of two things. We can either work to create extrinsic motivation and give you like some prize or something that is not related to that goal. Like, nobody likes inputting receipts, right? But I'm going to tell myself that if I input all of these receipts, I'm allowed to go get an ice cream. I don't know. It could be something simple like that. Or we can also, at this point, make a choice to hand off the task to someone else and outsource. So I think about examples of this inside of the studio, and I wanted to share this example because I think it's really important. So in addition to being a voice teacher, I'm a piano teacher, and my style of teaching, like one of the big things about my studio, that these are very student driven, and that students, once they reach a certain point, basically pick all of their repertoire, right? As a piano teacher, I want my students to feel super excited about practicing at home, and that they want to practice because of intrinsic motivation. We don't do things like competitions and stuff like that. Not saying that there's anything wrong with them. That is just the style that I am as a teacher. So for me, when I notice a student is really struggling with the piece, I do give them, we have a set amount of time that we will try to work on a piece. And once we start noticing, like maybe 3 weeks in, things haven't changed, then we start to re-examine, like, is this something that we want to do? And I just ask the question really, point blank. Hey, I noticed that we're kind of like stuck on this piece. It's kind of like we're treading water. That probably doesn't feel very good, does it? Or I will ask the question, how does that make you feel? And it's oftentimes like, oh man, I'm just so frustrated because I can't seem to get past this part of this piece. And no matter what I'm doing, it's just not working. So at that point, I'll ask the question, is this something that you want to continue working on? Or would you like to put this off to the side? Right? Because they're just not feeling it. So giving ourselves permission to re-examine what is our goal? Is this something that we want? Or is it something that we're just trying to power through because we think we should do it? I love this. Elizabeth saying, ice cream, time to get to the end of year rewards, gift certificates to a local ice cream parlor. That's one of my favorite things to do. We have a really good local, it's not ice cream, it's custard, which is, in my opinion, way better than ice cream, but I'm opinionated. Okay. Yes, I love this. Thank you. Linda says, I need to ask this question more often. All right. We're getting ready to do our rapid recap. But before I do that, if you have been listening along, I see quite a few of you there showing up. If you've been listening along and you have enjoyed something here, please let us know. Hey there, Fiddlin' Phil over on Instagram. Awesome job. All right, so let us know what was useful to you here today, and we'll try to bring those up on the screen. If you would like to get a hold of the notes that I put together with the Savvy Sara bot, please drop the word why down below if you are on Instagram or on Facebook, and you can get a hold of those things. If you are on YouTube, please look in the pinned description here, and you will find a link that you can click on, or you can look in the description below, and that's where you can find it. So we're getting ready to do our rapid recap. Let's get moving here. And I promise I'm going to try our best to figure out what is going on with those text messages. And hopefully we'll be able to figure out what the issue is, and that next week you will actually get, if you have already signed up for text message reminders, you will get a text message telling you about this event. All right, so let's do this rapid recap. Here we go from the top. So, if you've ever found yourself procrastinating on a necessary task, this broadcast recap is for you. It can feel easy to put off the things that feel difficult or that feel boring. And we know that, as Alan Miller says, if you want to make an easy job seem hard, just keep putting it off. And, if you want to make a hard job seem even harder, push it off until tomorrow. So let's examine the roots of procrastination, because society sometimes tells us that procrastination is about being lazy or about being disorganized, but I really don't think that that's true. At the root of procrastination can be very many different reasons, and we're going to look at 3 real quick right here and the potential solutions to them. So the first root behind procrastination is the fear of failure. It's avoiding something because you don't want to mess it up, or you're afraid that it's not going to be perfect. This often stems from high perfectionism, very high self-expectations, and this fear or worry of letting ourselves down or letting somebody else down. What can we do when we see this happening? Well, we can shine a little bit of light on that fear and ask us, is this true? What will happen if this occurs? And just examine it, because oftentimes when we look for those scary things that are under the bed and we shed a little light, we actually find that there's nothing there. The second thing that could be behind procrastination is overwhelm. So if a task or a project feels too large or too complex, or if it feels unclear, it gets really easy to put that thing off. And you're going to push it to tomorrow, and then tomorrow becomes the next day, etc. So in this instance, one of the things that we can do is to revisit this project or task and start really thinking, like, how can I make this more doable? How can I make this more clear? And starting to get a nice series of small steps that you can take. The third thing that might be behind procrastination is that you're just not feeling it, right? You're just not feeling it, and you're uninterested in doing this task. There's no intrinsic motivation to move forward. And if this is the case, my encouragement to you is to examine if that task actually aligns with your overarching goals. And then we have a couple of things that might happen. If it does align, then and you're avoiding this task just because it feels boring, you have opportunities to either create extrinsic motivation to achieve that task, or hand that task off to somebody else and outsource it. Now, if it doesn't align and you find that this is really not what I want to do, then maybe it's time to go back to the drawing board. And if you ever need help figuring out what that looks like, that is what I do as a coach. I help people figure out what their goals are. I help them figure out how are we going to achieve those goals, and create really small actionable tasks that you can do, with always coming back to, does this fit our why? Because that's important. All right, if you want to learn more about this and watch the full broadcast about this, if you want to drop the word why down below, the Savvy Sara bot will get you all the information for this broadcast. And we are going to wrap it up here today, and we will see you next time. So thank you so much for being here. In the meantime, stay savvy and stay you, because you are an amazing music teacher, and there's no one in the world quite like you. And I think that you are pretty dang awesome. Thank you so much for being here. We will see you next time.